some little thing in the deep, dark reaches of their mind that just says, I don't like how that looks.
And we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what do we got to change? Welcome to the Triple P Podcast, Premier, Professional, and Proactive, brought to you by the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. I'm your host, Clayton O'Brien.
And I'm the Fire Chief for the City of Oregon.
And I'm an active member of the association. I currently sit on the executive board for the Ohio Fire Chiefs Foundation, and I became an association fellow in 2021 as part of class number 10. The Ohio Fire Chiefs Association exists to improve the safety of Ohio by leading, representing, educating, and supporting Ohio emergency services. This podcast is not only for the members of the association, but also for any other fire and emergency service leaders. It is the purpose of the association to promote education, best practices, and study ways and means to cope with the ever-increasing need for a better understanding of the complex problems which are being presented to the fire protection and emergency services of our nation today.
And I'm joined by my co-host, Assistant Chief Joel Fry from the Napoleon Fire Department, and Fire Chief Joshua Hartberger of the White House Fire Department.
Thanks, Clayton. Hello, I am Joel Fry, Assistant Fire Chief for Napoleon Fire and Rescue. I am a current member of the OFCA, and I currently sit on the Education Committee. I am happy to be here, striving to advance the fire service as a whole.
And I'm Joshua Hartberger from the White House Fire Department. I'm also a member of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association, and I sit on the Education Committee and the Legislative Committee.
So here's the thing, Brad, though. What happens in these certain departments that don't necessarily have a company officer? They don't have that one individual that has the title that's working on a regular day every single day. So then what?
Well, what's the next best thing, I guess? If somebody has the responsibility of riding in that seat, whether they're a promoted officer or not, you may very well have firefighters that are functioning in that capacity. If they're in that seat that day, they carry some of that responsibility. If you as chief officers are allowing them to make a decision whether to go into a building or not, and they're riding in that front seat that day, they need to have, or at least work to get some of that knowledge. I certainly am not trying to sound dismissive over what I think people might not know, but just simply what I really want people to do is realize what they don't know. It's that whole concept of unconscious incompetence. They don't realize all of these lessons are out there. I didn't even mention a couple of the most super critical ones here in Ohio: Pater Avenue in Hamilton with Pat Walterman and Robin and Brian on the Squirrel's Nest Lane fire in Coleraine Township, and John Nance, the High Street fire in Columbus. The list goes on and on and on. And my point is, we have to study that stuff. We have to make it a point in our career development at some point along the way to really dive into that. And I think that's what makes a company officer, qualified, I guess, to make those go or no go decisions when you pull up on a house, because there could be just something that creeps into their head a little bit, some little thing in the deep, dark reaches of their mind that just says, I don't like how that looks. Mm-hmm. And that could be one of those incidents or one of those, voices from beyond, if you will, that is paid for a lesson with their life that we need to respect. So anyways, just got in a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but the idea is I really do hope that company officers see the value in being historians at that level. And if not the company officer, then maybe the chief, maybe the training officer, maybe something along those lines. It's going to look different in each organization, but I hope somebody's stepping up.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Then that's what it's all about, right? Somebody's got to step up. If there's not an actual titled company officer, then it's not the title that's creating that individual that's to lead the group. I mean, there's so many of our people in our organizations that are leaders, informal leaders, or leaders without a title. They are ones that don't have them, that are stepping up each and every day to act as a company officer is expected to act. But it's just, it's in their nature to be able to act like that, is just be a leader without the title.
Well, and I think that's back to your original question. It is the onus of everybody to understand that as the nature of what we do. I mean, you mentioned also code enforcement. You say Coconut Grove, and any code enforcement official out there is going to remember, yep, triggered right in my brain. But you're right. I mean, to your point, it is technically everybody's responsibility, but the fire company officer as a historian, that's an awesome, just mindset to have, and you're absolutely right.
One of the go ahead, Chief.
No, I didn't
Okay.
have it. I didn't have anything. Sorry.
No, so one of the other things, it's kind of a three-pronged thing, right, that I oftentimes talk about when we're doing this kind of content is, yes, the company officer as an instructor, yes, the company officer as a historian, but getting away from the training aspect for a little bit. One of the other important things is the company officer as a referee is sometimes the phrase that I use. And what I mean by that is it goes back to that concept that many more careers are killed in the fire station than there are firefighters killed on the fire ground. Yep. Right. And I didn't come up with that phrase. I don't know who to attribute that. But the concept of the company officer really doing a good job around the fire station, managing their folks in a way that, somebody's not telling an off-color joke or somebody's not feeling hazed or bullied or something like that. It's really the company officer's job to be a little bit of that referee. And we want to continue the environment that we all love in the fire service. Of course, you're going to, mess with the rookie a little bit. Of course, you're going to joke around over the dinner table and things like that. That's part of what makes this job enjoyable and fun and different every day. It's one of the things that keeps us all sane when we go on all these crazy calls, right? Is to come back and talk about it and joke about it sometimes and diffuse a little bit. But there's always times when things start to get a little uneasy, maybe we're starting to, get on that rookie a little bit too much, or maybe somebody says some, racial or sexual based joke or something like that that's not appropriate. We have to, as company officers, play that role of referee. And there's times in which maybe kind of a soft redirect might work. Hey, it's guys, all right. We've given him enough grief today. Let's go over here and watch the football game or something like that, right? We're kind of that little soft redirect without making it about, oh, look at me, I'm the officer. But then there's also times in which somebody says something way out of line or something that there's a time for a hard redirect as well. There's absolutely stop. We are not going to talk about that anymore. I need you in my office, something along those lines, right? And so kind of figuring out what that looks like for you and developing and honing those skills over the years as a company officer is really important. And I think I was just having a conversation with one of our district chiefs that I came on with, and is just a fantastic guy. Was talking with him earlier today about he has done a great job since he's been promoted to district chief in our organization, and still being kind of one of the guys, joking around a little bit, not being all stuffy and not being all, look at me now, I'm a chief officer. Not that he would do that anyway, or that we have others that do it. But the point is, where I'm going with this is he's respected, but he's still one of the guys. He can still crack a joke from time to time. He's still a human being. And then so when the times do come up, when something needs to be dealt with a little bit more harshly, or something needs to be, something where there's no negotiation involved or no jokes involved, he has the respect of those folks that, hey, look, this is the time when I need you to be like this. And having that platform of being a good person and a good human and a good peer and comrade, lends itself to, if those times do come along where there's got to be a little bit of a more serious issue, then he has that foundation to do so. So I think that probably makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it's not easy, though. I mean, you talked about a lot with experience, or a district chief that's been on the job for a long time, that's been around the table for a long time. It's not easy of like, oh, okay, so was that a hard direct, or is this a soft one, or is this like a hard one? Like, because because I feel like we always have these conversations around the kitchen table. You're joking around or whatever else. And then you just one guy throws something out or gal throws something out. You're like,
right. And so at that moment, so I've got to pounce on that for a second, Chief, because at that moment, you have one of two choices as an officer. You ever seen the meme with Homer Simpson disappearing into the bushes?
Yep.
Yeah.
where he sees something and he just kind of goes, and at that moment, I think there's probably too many that just say, well, I got some paperwork I got to go work on in the office. We're going to let these guys figure this one out. And maybe there's a time for that. But if that starts happening too often, to where the company officer just fails to lead and just lets the train fall completely off the tracks, then everybody's going to notice that. And the company officer isn't just instructing in a formal way, right? When you're doing a drill or something like that, the company officer is very much instructing through their constant actions, tone, how they treat people. If they're a screamer when they pull up on a structure fire and they queue up the radio to give a size up report, like all of those little things are teaching whether you like it or not.
Yep.
Right. And everybody in our industry could sit here and name off people that have had a positive impact on their career. Right. For me, guys like, Jeff Beachy, Mike Kenny, Mike Fosnot, Mike Rice, guys that probably nobody on here or maybe that's listening necessarily knows, but those are guys that taught me how to be an officer and how to do the right thing, even when no one's watching, that old cliche phrase about integrity and things like that as an officer. And I could also sit here, but I won't, tell you a bunch of guys that I don't think much of, and that they treated people wrong, that they were unfair in how they did things. They were a screamer on the radio. Nobody had confidence in them. Nobody wanted to work with them and things like that. Now, I'm not going to tell you who those people are, but I bet all three of you, and I'll bet everybody listening to this podcast could sit here and put a lot of names in both of those categories and realize that when you're an officer in the front seat of that rig every day, or even a chief, every day you're falling into one of those two silos in someone's head, right? And make sure it's the right one. Make sure you're going to bat for them and you're looking out for your people and you're making good decisions tactically on the fire ground and you're calm and cool and collected. And you want to train, but not just telling them to train. You want to train with them and come with me, follow me, let's go do this. And all of those little things add up to, essentially you want to be the officer that others will someday want to be. And I think if you approach every day like that a little bit, I think it helps out a lot.
And to be the good one on the other side is not because you, and back to what we talked a little bit about respect, all the ones that you just named off wasn't because you went to their house on the weekend and had a party. It wasn't because you went out to eat and you drank beers and you did all this. It was because they earned your respect at some point, and is most likely during a training, most likely what you said is that what they're doing and what they're teaching you each and every day by their actions, how they treat people, what they do on a regular day basis. Not because, like I said, relationships are one thing. It's you have friends and things like that, and you go out to dinner, but it's completely different when you earn respect of one another, where we can have respect for each other. And then, and also it's not a glass relationship, because then if I respect you or you respect, so when that individual's out of all those three names that you might have talked about, I can almost bet that one of those in that good pillar had a tough conversation with you, or a redirection or a correction or of that.
I could sit here and I could add another name to that list of somebody that taught me a very important lesson when I had done something wrong about going outside of the chain of command. I had gone on a scene and talked to a crew about something. I was the safety officer at a particular fire, and I'd gone along and they were writ, and I gave them a couple of things that I thought that they should be doing at that moment. And that officer came over to me and pulled me aside a little bit later and informed me politely but very sternly that I'm going to come talk to him if there's a problem with his crew. And I'll tell you what, he was absolutely right. And that was something that has stuck with me. I'm really big on the concept of chain of command because I think it reinforces the importance of a company officer. Now, I realize that gets a little bit more, it gets a little bit more murky in maybe some smaller organizations and things like that. But I really think that funnel concept, it works up and down for chain of command, right? If I'm the lieutenant that day or the captain that day and somebody wants a vacation day, well, they're going to send it to me as the company officer, right? And then I'm going to filter it up through to the chief. But vice versa, I think that chain of command concept is just as important on the way back down, that information gets disseminated to the company, preferably from the company officer and things like that. And I bring up kind of a theoretical a lot talking with the young officer groups in that somebody makes a mistake on the fire ground. Let's say I could sit here and talk until dinner time on mistakes that I've made on the fire ground, right? That's just part of it. We all make mistakes, right? And so say one of your young firefighters makes a mistake on the fire ground and the chief is hot. Chief is not pleased and heads right over beeline towards one of your crew members to let them know what's going on. As a company officer, in that moment, you have one of two choices, right? You can either Homer Simpson it into the bushes, and you can let that young member take their butt chewing from the chief, or you can step up and say, Chief, and kind of cut him off at the pass a little bit. And Chief, he's my guy. That's our bad. What do we do wrong? How can we try to fix this, right? And step up and be a leader and enforce that chain of command in both directions. And the reason that I always bring that up is because it goes back to company culture and esprit de corps. rapport and commitment in the company. Because if that young firefighter in that theoretical moment is left out to dry, what's his commitment to the company? What's his thought of that company officer? And if in that moment that officer steps up to be there beside him, right? Then it's almost like the Bengal. I saw a clip the other day of the Bengals press conference, or some locker room stuff after the Bengals game, and one of the guys that had made a mistake at the end of the game, was really getting peppered by reporters' questions, and one of his teammates just came in and just provided some support, was there to act as a buffer and to say, hey man, I got you, right? And it's kind of the same way as in a company officer relationship. In a theoretical moment like that as well, somebody to kind of buffer that, somebody to step up and take ownership of that company. Because if something goes wrong, that company officer should say,
my fault.
That's on me.
And
if something goes right, then they should give all the praise to all the people,
to everybody else. And it's so true about you. And this is so crazy, because just as we were setting this stuff up, we had a couple of the firefighters from my department come in and look at the podcast stuff. And I had just explained that about you, Brad, to them, that that I knew you as a company officer that completely took ownership of his crew. And that means so much. Like, and you can only do that if chief officers support that.
Yep.
Meaning, like, hey, if one of your people have a problem, or they can't pull that line, or they can't force that door, or they can't get water out of the truck, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to the company officer. Like, what? Hey, your boy, or what the heck? He couldn't get the hose off the thing.
And if that company officer walks into the day room at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday and they see a bunch of recliners kicked up, we got a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so back to your size, I do think, and I understand what you're saying, but even on the smaller departments, I mean, I only have 16 full-time staff members, but it is a structure that works. I mean, they have to take ownership of that crew.
And when they do take ownership of the crew, then well, when you talk about the chain of command and the information coming down and then going back up, if you treat it as going down, then what it's doing is it's allowing the company officers to gain the respect of their personnel that are on their staff, to get trust into them and say, hey, because they're then funneling the information back and forth. And
gain the respect I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
And gain the respect of their bosses, gain the respect of their chiefs. Yeah. Because if the chiefs are going directly to the firefighters for everything, then that's inherently devaluing the concept of the company officer.
Exactly.
And they need to, and so and then in order for them to take full ownership of it, and I know that's what we harped on it a lot. Joel and I harped on it a lot, and built this company officer level that says that, hey, if we have a captain that one of your people ain't doing this or did that, or I heard this or I heard that, we'd go to them. We shouldn't be going to firefighters and giving them a duty or a task or anything of that nature. And if we did, because we had somebody's in our mind, we already know those firefighters that, hey, this one's really good at this task that we need to have done, we're still going to go to his company officer and say, hey, I would like to have, so-and-so do that. If there's any time for him to be able to get it done today, that would be awesome. If not, then either way, we're going to need him to do it because he's the best at it. But at some point, let's talk about being able to schedule it. And I think that just reinforces the fact that when we're gone, we expect the company officers to run it. So why wouldn't it be when we're there that we would expect the exact same thing?
They take ownership of it. Otherwise, we have to take ownership of
it.
It's not as if we're trying to shirk that. I mean, obviously, we are responsible for everything that happens within the building. But I mean, allowing that company officer to have that and develop it. They know their people. They have the personalities down. Just that tough information, if it has to be disseminated, they know exactly how to deliver it to the crew to still keep within the chief's message, to still keep within the spirit of the organization, and make sure that it comes across in a way that isn't going to lead to conflict.
Yes, that's a good point, because by knowing your people and knowing the personality, there's going to be the one that say, no, that's not the way it's going to be. This is the way it's going to be. And he's going to take it great. Yep. He or she will take that really great. And then there's others where hey, you got to get the arm around, hey, you're not going to do that. We shouldn't do that next time, and knowing the personalities is a good way of how you're going to deliver the message to each individual. So that's a great point. And sometimes it's very hard. It's definitely hard for our positions to know the person. I mean, we know personalities to a point.
Yeah.
Because we only see so many. We don't see them in the 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't see them in the down, in those types of calls that, that are really, really, sleep deprived, and they're having a really bad day. And We don't know something that happened in between shifts that they're all communicating about that even happened at home that's affecting them. We don't see those because when we talk to them, usually like, hey, how's it going, Chief? And they're always in a good, positive mood. Yeah.
Yep.
And so
that good company officer comes right back and sits down. I mean, I had that situation the other day. Let me know exactly where one of these members is at in their personal life, because again, they have to be having a good home life. Otherwise, it is going to transcend into our stations or into our companies. So it's imperative, and that's why I go back to me, it is the structure. The size, you can take any size, doesn't matter whether it's 50 people, whether it's 2 people, it's the structure, because that's where that cohesion comes in.
Mm-hmm.
That dinner table conversation that sometimes we're not present for. I mean, I love it when I get invited to, I got a late meeting or something, like, hey, come on, we got dinner over here. It's like, oh man, this feels good again. It's been a long time since we've been able to do this.
One of the other things that I think is so critical, and it really kind of rolls from this conversation, is and it's a piece of it, is the concept of tone, right? That if that company officer shows up every day and is, half dressed, t-shirt hanging out, that barely looked like he shaved, and is just, all right, here we go. We got this, we got this hydrant group we got to do today. And like immediately everyone is not going to have a very good day, right? It's just the tone at which the officer, starts the day and maintains throughout the day is really, really critical. If all the officer wants to talk about is, well, the city's screwing us again with this, and the chief doesn't know how to figure this, chief can't figure this out, and I don't know why, I could do a better job. And if all of that kind of stuff is the baggage that company officer is coming into every day with, then that company culture is not going to be good at all, right?
Very quickly.
And that's where I love your conversation about, top up, all the way down, because that's exactly what chief officers should be doing for their company officers, is exactly what we expect for them to do to their crews. Mm-hmm. That sit down conversation. I know exactly with my 5 officers I know exactly how to deliver the message to them. Some I can be very direct, and it can be a short conversation. They're going to absorb the information, no questions, done. They're good to go. Others I know I have to spend 25, 30 minutes unpacking it, going through details. It's going to be 2 phone calls later, 2 days later, that they're actually going to get it, understand it, and then push on, and we're good. And that's on us. We have to do that. We have to know.
Because, Chief, if you don't take that time to do that cycle that you just described, then what is that message going to be from the officer down to their troops? It's not going to be what you intended.
Exactly. And then we get frustrated, right? So, I mean, if we don't take the time to know that, well, why didn't so-and-so do it this way? Well, because you didn't take the time to understand your people. That's why.
But I will say, just in like the last, we've been on this podcast for maybe 20 minutes or whatever else, but, like with Brad being able to say, your energy that you bring just in talking to you right now, like energizes me, like this passion of how we deliver like messages to each other. And what that does is it brings this energy to a room, and automatically you have a command presence, and automatically you have this kind of like positive attitude that's going to, reignite some sort of everybody in the fire service, everybody listening to this podcast, everybody in a firehouse does have a flame. Sometimes it's very close to being burned out, and sometimes it's burning at the top. But if you bring the right energy as a company officer, like you're saying, set the tone from the very beginning, bring the right energy, that you might be able to make that flame just a little bit bigger. It's just about how and what to re-energize those officers that their flame is about burned out, or the firefighter's flame is about burned out. How do you re-energize those? And I know that we can talk about it, of how we re-energize chief officers, or how we energize company officers as chiefs, but how do you as a company officer re-energize a firefighter?
Well, I think it starts with realizing that even the good ones are going to have bad days, right? Everybody's going to, maybe they had a long night at home with a screaming baby or something like that, or maybe they didn't score as well on a recent promotional exam that they'd studied a whole lot for. And so even your good people are going to have some bad days from time to time. So I think that really speaks to what you guys were talking about a lot, which is that the company officer knows their people best and knows how to, cultivate those people and you get them pointed in the right direction the best. And I really think that the best way to get people pointed in the right direction is to just lead with passion and enthusiasm and inspiration. I feel the same way about instructing in the fire service, right? Of course, the company officer is an instructor, right? Like we're kind of calling this session or some other sessions from the past. if the instructor walks in and the instructor just says, looks like, let's see, what do we got here? Chapter 13, ground ladders. Okay, exciting. So we're going to start here with the beams. Like, nobody's going to care about what that person says. You've lost them. Like, you suck. The class is going to be terrible. Like, what are you doing? Right. And it's the same way when I ever do a class or have the opportunity to present, I don't want people to just walk away with some nuggets of stuff, maybe a drill to do or an idea for around the fire station. In my utopian world, I would want that attendee or that person or that student to leave with not just those little nuggets of information, but inspiration to go learn more. And it's the same way with a company officer, right? You want, if you're leading the right way as a company officer and constantly talking about professional development and going to conferences and reading Firehouse Fire Engineering magazines, and you're doing all of these things to be engaged in the job, and other people see that, it has a tendency to rub off. It has a tendency to have a ripple effect. And they realize, wow, this, the boss here, this captain, this truck company captain is really, really into this stuff. He's talking about going to a training. He was just in his office working on some other thing a little bit ago. Cap, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What are you doing? And just the way that officer talks, to the crew, just being passionate, enthusiastic. I think that's the way to, as you say, spark that flame a little bit and grow that, is just by leading from the front, leading by example. If you're the company officer, be the one with your nose in a trade magazine book. Be the one, saying that we're going to do a drill every day. Be the one coming to you guys as chief officers saying, hey, look, I think we actually figured out a little bit better way to do this, chief. What do you think? Right.
I just want to jump in right there, because when you said you want to go to the chief officer, and that little flame for us is exactly what we have to do. We can't suppress that. If we suppress that burns out the officer's flame, right? Yep. And your passion and your part of a company officer goes away quickly if it's not like, if you're coming to me, hey, chief, I think we should do this. Well, shoot, I think we should be too. So like, and I say that a lot, and I've always kind of preached this fact that we should always say yes first as chief officers until we're proven that we have to say no. Like, right. If we always lead with saying like, let's do that, until it's like, oh, we absolutely can't do that. Because if you start off with no, well, then you're never, ever going to go anywhere. If it's always like, hey, can we do this? Can we do it? Well, no. Well, then you're never, ever going to go anywhere. But if you always say, yes, we can, and then maybe as you try to work through it, it just works out that you can't do it, but now you've at least have a reason why. In our shoes, we need to know why we can't do it, because it can't be because I said so. Because if it's because I said so, we have lost all of our people, and we are not doing it the right way. And so when that's why I wanted to jump right in on that part, because if we suppress the officers, then that's going to quickly go out, and that's going to trickle down just as well, because they will have that same sort of, it'll take away their passion.
He said no again.
Yeah, he said, what a surprise, I don't even, might as well not even ask. So you've just kind of like suppressed this whole creative mindset. And if you've never listened to like the John Maxwell podcast, they talked about that creative thinking, and then into the influencer, and then just trying to just make sure that you have and create creative thinking within organizations. And if they're coming to you with ideas, then absolutely give it a shot, because if you're not giving it a shot, then I think that those ideas will then slowly but surely not come to you anymore.
But I think too, that's where transparent communication between the chief and between the company officers, because we're looking at it from a monetary perspective, from can we do it legislatively, all the legal implications that come in with just one simple design change. If we're communicating that and actually developing our company officers and showing them what we look at, preparing for our replacement, then in theory they should already have some of those answers for us when they come forward, and that is a lot easier, because they're going to know where our no's are.
Correct.
And before it even gets to us,
that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. They're already going to know, like, hey, what questions he's going to ask me if I do. If I do say, hey, we should try this, he's going to ask, like, okay, does it cost any money?
Yeah, how much is it?
And, what's it going to do? What's it entail? What do we got to change? And then what the impact of the organization as a whole is. Not that's not any hoop that we couldn't jump over. It's just saying that be prepared as the company officer to be able to answer those questions, because otherwise we may view it as, oh, well, they just came up with this great idea, or they think it's a great idea, but they don't want to do any work for it. They just want to say, hey, I want to now throw it on to you as the chief to be able to figure it out of how it actually gets done. We have the idea.
And if you as a chief officer treat your company officer right, and do say yes, do try to figure it out. If you treat those company officers right, they're going to become your biggest cheerleader in the organization.
Absolutely.
They're going to talk good about you even when you're not around, right?
Yep.
And so the chief officer looking at the company officers through that exact same lens of everything we've been talking about for the past hour, the way a company officer should look at their firefighters, cultivating, developing, pushing them for professional development, encouraging them to promote, all of those little things. If the chief is looking at the company officers as that same team dynamic as the company officers are looking at their own individual firefighters, then I think that's a great way to lead.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's the step of the micromanagement too. I mean, like, you got to let them fly. You got to let them go, let them make the decisions, and they will make you happy.
Yeah.
And there's going to be the times, but make sure you're the educator, and
let them make the mistakes. Yeah.
We all got to where we're at by all.
We can do it.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes every day. I mean, that's
still, it doesn't matter what position
is.
you're at. You're still making mistakes, and you're still we're still learning from it. So like, I feel like, I always look at it like, and even in our positions, like, we don't have our bosses over here telling us what to do every day.
Yeah.
They're not telling us what are we dreaming up?
And if you do, something's probably wrong.
Something is wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so none of us in sitting here today want to be micromanaged.
Yep.
And so, if you are being micromanaged, Joel, you're exactly right that we're probably not doing something right. And we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, what do we got to change? But we have to do the exact same thing to say that, be transparent in the communication. Whereas, hey, I don't want to be a micromanager on a regular basis, but if you are, as a chief officer, talking to a company officer, or if I'm the company officer receiving this message, if they're having that conversation with you saying, like, I would just handle it this way, or explain why you handled it that way, then I think there's just that transparent, open communication that you get exactly out of it what you're looking to have out of it. Yep. So
exactly.
Good stuff, Chief. We've hit a lot of the big ticket items that I was hoping we would get to chat about. We can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, so I'm really glad, but you're right. I could talk about this all day. I mean, because this is what my enthusiasm is about. This is what my passion's about. It's about, just creating an environment that people want to be around. What are we doing for the fire service today to make it better than it was yesterday? And that means whether you're investing in yourself, investing into a coworker, a rookie, you're training, you're doing something, but you're doing something to make the fire service as a whole better today than it was yesterday. And I truly live by that. So I truly do appreciate all your time, Captain French. This has been a great, past hour of just sitting here talking about what we believe a great company officer can do and the impact that they can have on all organizations across, because as one person, as a chief, that we can multiply the impact that we have on our organizations, and you guys as company officers can multiply the impact that you have not only in your organizations, but what you have done for a long time, Captain French, is you've multiplied it through speaking at conferences and showing your passion and being a part of the IFSI and being a part of education groups and committees that the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association has and is looking for in people that want to be a part of the fire service to make it better today than it was yesterday. So truly appreciate all your time of spending with us. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all three of you. It's been my absolute pleasure. And I've had such a great experience being a member of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association and getting to go up to the conferences. And it's just always so nice to get to interact with like-minded folks that are so passionate and enthusiastic about the job. It's always a good recharge of the batteries to make it up to that conference in the summer and to do things just like this. So thank you very much for having me on, Chief O'Brien.
Yep, you're very welcome. And we'll see you soon, hopefully. Captain Brad French, captain of Dayton Fire Department. He's a 22-year member of the fire service and holds degrees in fire administration, fire science, and criminal justice administration. He has served 4 years in the ISFSI Board of Directors from 2015 to 2019. He currently serves as a principal member of the NFPA 1700 and 1402 technical committees, and is also a member of the technical panel of the UL FSRI Coordinated Fire Attack Study. He has presented at numerous National Fire Service training events, including FDIC, Firehouse Expo, Firehouse World, FRI, and the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association Conference.
Thank you for tuning in to the Triple P Podcast, Premier, Professional, and Proactive, brought to you by the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. If you'd like to hear more, follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. And if you feel so inclined, please help us spread the word by telling your fire and EMS friends about this channel.